So you have a home and you're thinking about selling it in the near or even not so near future. And of course, you want to be sure to properly prep yourself and your home for this future sale. Hi, my name is Len Nevin with Loyalty Home Group at eXp Realty. And since 2003, I've been working with homeowners just like you that have gone through this exact same scenario. A little prep work up front goes a long way. So today I want to talk about the different steps in the selling process and what to expect each step of the way. The real estate closing process marks the final step in a real estate transaction where ownership is officially transferred from you, the seller, to the buyer. This stage involves a series of steps, paperwork, and legal procedures. In this video, we'll outline the key steps involved in closing a real estate transaction, shedding light on the paperwork, escrow, and other essential components. So first and foremost is the contract execution. Before reaching the closing stage, a purchase agreement or a sales contract must be executed. This agreement outlines the terms of the sale, including the purchase price, contingencies, and the closing date. Both the seller and the buyer must agree to sign this one single document. After that, we open escrow. So once the contract is executed, an escrow account is typically opened at the title company. An escrow officer, who is the neutral third party, will manage this account. The escrow officer ensures that all the terms and conditions of the contract are met before the transaction can proceed. They kind of keep us moving along the road. Next, they'll do what's called a title search and do an insurance search. So a title search is conducted to examine the property's history and confirm that the seller has clear and marketable title. Title insurance may be obtained to protect both the buyer and the lender against the potential issues that could arise with the title. Now the buyer is going to do the home inspection, and we're going to start looking at the contingencies. The buyer may perform a home inspection during this stage to identify any issues with the property. They typically do. Based on the inspection results, the buyer may request repairs or negotiate contingencies or even a change in price with you, the seller. After we've cleared that, the next thing we're looking for is mortgage approval. If the buyer is financing the purchase, the lender will conduct a final review of the buyer's financial information and the property's appraisal to ensure that the loan can be approved. This may involve underwriting and a final credit check for that buyer. About 3 days before the close, we're going to be looking at the closing disclosure. The lender will provide a closing disclosure to the buyer, like I said, 3 days before the closing. This document outlines the final loan terms, including interest rate, monthly payments, and any closing costs. It's kind of the truth in lending piece. The buyer will then request a final walkthrough. The buyer typically has the right to conduct a final walkthrough of the property shortly before closing. This is to ensure that the property is in the agreed upon condition and that any requested repairs have been completed. So we are also going to want to provide receipts for any repair that was done at that same time. Then you're going to have the closing documents review. Both the buyer and the seller will review and sign a series of legal documents. These documents are going to include things such as the deed. A deed transfers ownership from the seller to the buyer. The next document we're going to look at is the bill of sale. This document transfers personal property such as appliances or fixtures. Sometimes those are included, sometimes they're not. Mortgage documents, of course. If financing is involved, the buyer will sign the mortgage note and security instrument, and that'll be done with at their seating. Then it's the closing statement. This document provides a detailed breakdown of financial transactions, including the distribution of funds and, of course, the closing costs. We'll look at the title insurance policy. The title insurance policy protects the buyer and the lender from any title defects or claims that may arise on the property. Then there's going to be the funds transfer. The buyer will provide the funds for the purchase, so their funds, either through a certified cashier's check or typically a wire transfer. The seller receives the proceeds from the sale once everything is done, typically from the title company. Once the closing and the funds have transferred, we send it to the county for what's called recording. Once all these documents have been signed, funds have been transferred, like I said, the closing agent records the deed and other pertinent documents with the county's recorder's office. This step officially transfers ownership from the seller to the buyer. Lastly, we've got the possession and the handover. The buyer takes possession of the property and the seller hands over the keys. Typically, this is done through, the lockbox. The buyer's agent will meet the buyer over there. Now, the closing agent's duties at that point is the closing agent disperses funds to the appropriate parties, pays off any existing mortgages, and issues the final closing statements to all parties involved. So those are the kind of steps, right? Wrapping up, The real estate closing process is a complex and multifaceted stage of a real estate transaction. Understanding the various steps and components involved in closing can help buyers and sellers navigate this process with confidence. Effective communication and collaboration with your real estate agent, lender, escrow officer, and any other professionals involved in the transaction are essential for a successful and smooth closing. If you have any questions on this particular subject, please feel free to reach out. My information is in the description below. Well, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.